on the edge of a quiet little town in Vermont, nestled between rows of tall pine trees and rolling green hills, there was a big red farmhouse with a wraparound porch and squeaky wooden steps. That's where Kobe the puppy was born, right in the heart of Maplewood Farm. He wasn't alone, either. Kobe had 4 brothers and sisters, each one just as tiny and wiggly as he was, all born on the same chilly spring morning. The farm was owned by the friendly Thompson family, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, along with their 2 kids, Ellie and Jack. Kobe's parents, Max and Daisy, were the family's beloved dogs. Max, a big golden retriever with kind eyes, mostly spent his days lounging on the porch or trotting alongside Mr. Thompson as he fed the animals. Daisy, a gentle border collie with soft black and white fur, had just become a mother, and she couldn't be prouder of her pups. The puppy's first home was a large cardboard box tucked inside the cozy mudroom of the farmhouse. But this wasn't any ordinary box. The Thompsons had filled it with thick fleece blankets, soft towels, and even a heating pad hidden underneath to keep the pups warm during the cool nights. There was enough room for all 5 puppies to snuggle together, and even more space for Daisy to lie down comfortably with them. Daisy hardly ever left their side. She licked their heads gently, nudged them into position when they got tangled up in each other, and curled her body protectively around them like a warm donut. The box always smelled like clean cotton and warm fur, and with Daisy there, it felt like the safest place in the world. Even though Kobe and his siblings couldn't see yet, they were born with their eyes shut. They had no trouble finding their mother. Her scent was as familiar as the sound of her gentle breathing, and her body radiated a heat that pulled the puppies toward her like magnets. They would wiggle and crawl over one another, tiny noses twitching, until they found her and pressed their soft bellies against hers. When Daisy left the box for a little while, maybe to stretch her legs or grab a quick drink from the water bowl, Kobe liked to curl up with his siblings. Their tiny bodies were soft and warm, and just being close to them made Kobe feel calm and drowsy. Even without sight, he could feel the love and safety of his little world. Puppies, like all babies, sleep a lot, and Kobe was no exception. His days were filled with long, peaceful naps and little spurts of movement, wiggling, stretching, nuzzling. But as the days passed, something began to shift. The puppies started to grow more curious. Their movements became stronger, and they'd bump into each other more often, little tails twitching as they explored the corners of their cardboard kingdom. One morning, Kobe sniffed his way to something soft and new. It wasn't Daisy. It wasn't one of his siblings either. It was a blanket, but not just any blanket. It was the thickest, fluffiest one he'd ever felt. It was like lying on a cloud. Kobe wiggled his body until he was right in the middle of it, paws spread out, belly down, nose buried deep in the folds. The softness made him sigh without even knowing it. That blanket became his favorite napping spot. Soon, the box started to feel less like a nursery and more like an adventure. Kobe began to notice new textures and shapes around him. His nose led the way, guiding him toward new discoveries. One day, he found a small, round object near the edge of the box. It had a weird smell, rubbery and strange, but also exciting. He opened his tiny mouth and gave it a lick. The object wobbled under his tongue, and something about the way it felt made his whole mouth tingle. It was a ball, and even though Kobe's teeth were barely coming in, he loved how it squished a little when he gnawed on it. It tasted different from anything else he'd known. Foreign, but fun. It made his gums feel better too, as if the rubber was giving them a gentle massage. After chewing for a while, he fell asleep again, the ball still resting against his cheek. As the weeks passed, the puppy's fur grew longer and puffier. They looked like fuzzy little cotton balls rolling around the box. Their coats began to show their true colors. 2 had shiny black fur. 2 had creamy coats with spots of gold and brown. And then there was Kobe. He looked just like Daisy, with a mix of soft black and snowy white fur. His chest was pure white, like fresh Vermont snow, and so were his paws and the tip of his little nose. But what made him truly special were the 2 dark patches around his eyes, one bigger than the other, like a tiny masked adventurer. One morning, Kobe's left eye began to open, just a sliver at first. Everything was blurry and full of strange shapes, but he blinked and blinked, trying to make sense of it all. It was like someone had dimmed the lights in a room he'd never realized had lights at all. A few days later, his right eye began to open too, and for the first time, he could truly see. The first thing he saw was Daisy, his mom. To him, she looked enormous, like a gentle giant made of fluff and warmth. She looked back at him with the soft, kind eyes, her tail wagging ever so slowly. Kobe also saw his siblings in full for the first time, all of them with unique patterns and funny expressions. One looked like he was always raising an eyebrow, while another had a tiny, heart-shaped spot on her back. With the sight came even more curiosity. Now Kobe could see the way the light trickled in through the cracks in the farmhouse walls, golden and soft like melted butter. Every morning, sunlight poured through the big windows, warming the room and making everything look magical. Kobe loved lying in those beams of light, soaking them in like a sunflower. Seeing was amazing, but even more amazing was moving. Kobe began trying to stand on his tiny legs. At first, he wobbled like a jelly bean in a windstorm. His legs gave out almost immediately, and he flopped onto his belly with a quiet little oof. But Daisy was there, watching calmly. Her eyes said, "Try again, little one." And so he did. One paw forward, then the next. Kobe wobbled, but this time he didn't fall. He was walking. He was really walking. The view from up on his feet was something else, like standing at the top of a hill and seeing the world for the first time. Not long after, all the puppies learned to walk, and the box felt smaller by the day. That's when the Thompsons decided it was time to take them outside. It was early morning when Mr. Thompson carried the box outside to the backyard. Kobe felt the cool breeze before anything else. Then suddenly, the world burst open. Grass, sky, wind, flowers. Everything was huge and bright and new. Kobe placed one paw onto the grass. It tickled, then another, then all 4. The grass felt alive beneath his feet, cool and soft, with little blades poking between his toes. He looked around, eyes wide, nose twitching furiously. The scents were dizzying. Fresh flowers, pine needles, earth, morning dew, and something sweet too. Pancakes, maybe, drifting out from the farmhouse kitchen. He took a few shaky steps, then a few more. Then he ran. The wind whooshed past his ears, making them flap like little wings. His fur streamed behind him like a superhero's cape. He was weightless. He was free. And he wasn't alone. His siblings bounded after him, tails wagging, paws thumping against the grass. It was a parade of tiny puppies charging into the world like explorers on their first mission. Kobe paused near a cluster of lilac bushes, drawn by their scent. He stuck his nose deep into the petals and gave one a lick. It tasted like sunlight and dreams. Overhead, a tall maple tree stretched toward the sky. Kobe looked up, mesmerized. Leaves shimmered and danced in the breeze. One fluttered down and landed softly on his head. He shook it off, giggling in his own little way, and watched as the shadows of the leaves played across the ground like a secret game just for him. Eventually, Mrs. Thompson scooped the puppies up and placed them back into their box. Daisy climbed in too, curling her body around them. One by one, the puppies yawned, their little legs twitching from all the excitement. Kobe closed his eyes, the scent of lilacs still fresh in his nose. He imagined the dancing leaves again, swirling above his head, and for a moment, he felt like one of them, soft, light, and carried gently by the wind. And just like that, he drifted off to sleep. The next few days at Maplewood Farm were filled with little victories and even bigger discoveries. Every morning, the puppies woke to the scent of pancakes and warm hay, drifting through the open windows of the farmhouse. Kobe was always the first to stir. His little nose twitched in the air like a weather vane, catching every scent that floated by. He was growing fast, stronger, bouncier, and even more curious. One bright morning, after the sun had crept across the wooden floorboards and warmed the walls of the mudroom, Ellie and Jack came bursting in with excitement sparkling in their eyes. "Time for some backyard adventures," Jack said, scooping up two of the puppies gently in his arms. Ellie picked up Kobe and cradled him like a little baby. Her long red hair tickled his nose, and she giggled when he sneezed. Outside, the world looked even bigger than before. The puppies were placed one by one onto the fresh green lawn. The grass glistened with dew, and tiny birds chirped from the trees. The backyard felt like an entire world to explore. And for Kobe, that meant one thing: time to investigate everything. He trotted across the lawn, ears flopping and tail wagging, sniffing every new patch of earth, leaf, and flower. He chased shadows again, hopping from shape to shape as the sunlight streamed through the maple branches above. The breeze made the wind chimes on the porch sing a magical tune, and Kobe stopped for a moment just to listen, tilting his head from side to side. But the biggest surprise came when Jack pulled something shiny and blue from behind his back. "Who wants to play with a real ball?" he called out. Kobe's ears perked up. A ball, like the small rubber one from the box, but bigger. Jack rolled it gently onto the grass. It sparkled in the sunlight, and Kobe couldn't help himself. He ran after it with all his might. The ball rolled faster, but so did he, his paws thudding softly against the earth. His siblings joined the chase, turning the lawn into a bouncy, furry stampede. When Kobe finally reached the ball, he pounced on it. It rolled under him, sending him tumbling into a soft patch of clover. He popped his head up a second later, his tongue sticking out and his tail wagging so hard it looked like it might lift him off the ground. After all that running, the puppies began to settle down under the big maple tree. Ellie and Jack brought over a shallow water bowl and a soft fleece blanket for them to rest on. Kobe took a long, cool drink and flopped onto the blanket beside his sister. The one with a heart-shaped spot on her back. They lay there panting, soaking in the sunlight, surrounded by the sounds of the farm. From where he was lying, Kobe could see the chicken coop in the distance. A few clucky chickens wandered around, pecking at the ground. One of them, a fluffy white hen with a waddling walk, waddled a little too close. Kobe's eyes went wide. He stood up slowly and took a cautious step forward. The hen clucked and blinked at him. "Be nice, Kobe," Ellie said, watching with a smile. Kobe took another step and then gave the hen a gentle sniff. She tilted her head and clucked as if to say, "Well, hello there." Then, without warning, she strutted off, feathers bouncing with every step. Kobe stared after her, completely fascinated. After a little more rest, Mr. Thompson appeared with a big blue blanket and spread it under the shade of the tree. He brought over a wicker picnic basket and laid out a tiny feast, not for the puppies, but for Ellie and Jack, who had worked hard all morning helping around the farm. As the kids ate their peanut butter sandwiches and apple slices, the puppies sprawled out beside them, basking in the warmth of the sun and the gentle hum of the world around them. Kobe nestled between Jack's sneaker and Ellie's backpack. He felt like he belonged there, right in the middle of the family, in the heart of this wide, wonderful world. Later that afternoon, clouds began to drift across the sky. They were fluffy and white at first, but soon turned a soft gray. A gentle wind swept across the fields, and the trees whispered to each other in rustling voices. Ellie scooped up Kobe and looked at the sky. "Looks like a storm's coming," she said. "Time to head back in." The puppies were gathered up again and carried inside, one by one. Back in the mudroom, their cozy box was waiting, with the soft blanket Kobe loved so much, and the rubber ball resting in the corner. Daisy was already inside, tail wagging, ready to cuddle her babies. As the rain began to patter against the windows, the room filled with warmth and sleepiness. Kobe curled into a soft ball, his head resting on his sister's back. The distant sound of thunder rolled softly through the sky like a big, sleepy yawn. And in that moment, Kobe felt something new, something big and wonderful. He didn't have a name for it yet, but it felt like home. Not just the box or the farm, but everything. The wind in his ears, the ball rolling across the grass, the lilacs, the dancing shadows, and the loving voices that called his name. Kobe let out a tiny sigh, then closed his eyes as the rain gently drummed against the farmhouse roof. He felt safe. He felt loved. And most of all, he felt ready for whatever new adventure tomorrow might bring. The morning after the storm, the world outside the farmhouse sparkled. Raindrops clung to the leaves and blades of grass like little crystal beads. The air smelled like wet earth and new beginnings. Kobe blinked his eyes open, stretched his legs, and let out a big yawn that made his tiny tongue curl. He could already feel it. Today was going to be different. After breakfast, Daisy nudged her puppies toward the edge of the box. Kobe tilted his head. This wasn't their usual cuddle and nap kind of morning. Daisy gave him a gentle push with her nose, and suddenly Kobe realized what was happening. They were moving out of the box. One by one, the puppies stepped or tumbled onto the wooden floor. Kobe was the last to leave. As he crossed the cardboard edge, he felt like he was stepping over the border into a whole new world. The mud room looked massive now that he was seeing it from the floor. The wooden boards creaked beneath his paws, and there were so many interesting smells in the corners. Mud, leaves, apples, and something warm and sweet coming from the kitchen. Ellie was waiting with a soft towel to dry any damp paws. "Good morning, sleepyheads," she said, smiling down at the puppies. She reached out and gently scratched Kobe behind the ears, which made his whole body wiggle with joy. Jack knelt beside them, holding something that caught Kobe's attention instantly. It was a collar, but not just any collar. This one was tiny and blue, with a jingle bell attached. Jack fastened it carefully around Kobe's neck. "There," he said. "Now you're official." Kobe looked down, confused at first, then shook his head. The bell jingled. The sound was new and curious, like a little fairy dancing every time he moved. He gave another shake, jingle, jingle, and barked in delight. The other puppies joined in, sniffing at his collar, tails wagging. "Time for a big adventure," said Mrs. Thompson, appearing in the doorway. The big adventure turned out to be the barn. The red barn was only a short walk from the house, but to Kobe, it felt like a whole new universe. The puppies marched across the damp grass, some more confidently than others. Kobe led the way, puffing his chest out, ears flopping with every bounce. Inside the barn, the air was warm and smelled like hay, wood, and animals. Sunlight poured through the high windows, casting golden patches of light across the floor. Somewhere deep inside, a cow mooed lazily, and a goat bleated in response. The puppies paused at the entrance, eyes wide. Kobe took a cautious step inside. The ground here wasn't soft like grass. It was firm, packed earth covered in straw. It crackled softly beneath his paws. Ellie and Jack had set up a little puppy play area in one corner of the barn. There were new toys, soft blankets, and a shallow water dish shaped like a paw. But what caught Kobe's eye was the ramp. It wasn't very tall, but to a puppy, it looked like a mountain. Without hesitation, Kobe trotted over and put his front paws on the edge. The ramp wobbled slightly. His nose twitched. He could feel Daisy watching from behind, calm and encouraging. He took a deep breath and climbed. Halfway up, he slipped. His paws slid on the wood and he landed with a little oof, rolling back down onto the straw. But Kobe didn't cry. He didn't whimper. He stood up, shook off the dust, and marched right back to the ramp. This time, he climbed slower, steadier. When he reached the top, he paused, tail wagging like a flag in the wind. The view from up there was exciting. He could see the whole barn, the cows in their stalls, the goats peeking over their fences, and the dust swirling in golden sunbeams. He barked, proud and loud. His siblings looked up, then scrambled to climb the ramp too. Soon, there were 5 wiggly puppies at the top, tumbling over one another, tails wagging and tongues out. After the ramp, Jack introduced them to something else. Hay bales. To the puppies, hay was like a magical material, fluffy and crunchy all at once. Kobe leapt into a pile of it and disappeared for a moment, only to pop up again, with bits of straw stuck to his nose. The puppies played tag through the hay, sneaking, jumping, and sliding around like it was their own secret playground. Then, just as they were beginning to settle down, Kobe heard a new sound, a high-pitched squeak coming from the other side of the barn. He turned his head, ears pricked. It came again. Squeak, squeak, squeak. He followed the sound, nose twitching, tail swishing side to side. Behind a small stack of boxes near the back of the barn, he saw movement. Something small and fast, something gray. A mouse. Kobe froze. The mouse froze. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then, zoom, the mouse dashed away. Kobe yipped in excitement and gave chase, his paws slipping on the smooth wood as he ran. The mouse darted through a crack in the wall and disappeared, but Kobe didn't mind. The chase was thrilling. He barked once more for good measure, then trotted back to the hay pile where Daisy was waiting. She licked his head and let out a low, happy bark, as if to say, "That's my brave boy." Later that afternoon, as the sun began to dip behind the trees, Ellie called the puppies back to the house. Kobe hesitated just for a moment. He looked around the barn one last time. The hay, the ramp, the sunlight, the mouse hole. It had become another special place, another corner of his growing world. Back inside, the puppies were sleepy. After supper and a drink of water, they piled into their blankets near the fireplace. The storm had passed, the barn had been explored, and a new blue collar jingled gently as Kobe curled up beside his siblings. As he drifted off to sleep, his mind was full of mice, hay, and high adventures. In his dreams, he was running again, this time through the fields beyond the barn, his collar jingling with every joyful step. Tomorrow, he knew, would be another day, another chapter in a growing, wondrous story. The sun rose early over Maplewood Farm, casting long golden beams across the dewy grass. Inside the farmhouse, the Thompson family was already stirring. Ellie poured cereal into colorful bowls, Jack was tying his shoes, and Mr. Thompson could be heard outside feeding the chickens. But in the mudroom, something new was happening. Kobe sat wide awake at the edge of his blanket. He had grown taller, his legs longer and stronger, and his black and white fur had fluffed out into a soft, silky coat. His eyes were clearer than ever, filled with wonder and a touch of something new. Independence. He watched as Daisy sat by the door, ears perked, tail swaying gently. There was a quiet excitement in the air, like something important was coming. And then, it happened. Mrs. Thompson appeared with a small harness in her hand and a leash coiled like a ribbon. "Ready for your first walk, Kobe?" she asked with a smile. Walk? Kobe didn't know exactly what that meant, but the tone of her voice made his tail wag without thinking. He stood tall, alert, and ready. Mrs. Thompson carefully looped the harness around him and clipped the leash. It jingled softly, like the bell on his collar. Then the front door opened and Kobe stepped outside, not just into the yard or the barn this time, but out into the world beyond the farm gate. The sky was brilliant blue, painted with long trails of clouds. Birds darted from tree to tree, and the breeze carried the smell of wildflowers, warm pavement, and distant wood smoke. The dirt road that led away from the farm curved gently between fields and trees. It was quiet, peaceful, but filled with new sights and smells. Kobe trotted beside Mrs. Thompson, his ears perked high and his nose twitching like crazy. Every few steps, something would catch his attention. A squirrel zipped up a tree, and Kobe froze in place, watching with wide eyes as the fluffy-tailed creature vanished into the leaves. He gave a tiny bark, not out of fear, but fascination. Then came the smells. Oh, so many smells. Pine cones, mud, apples, something like cinnamon, and even the faint scent of another dog who must have passed this way earlier. Kobe tried to stop and sniff every one of them, but Mrs. Thompson gently tugged the leash each time, guiding him forward. "You'll have time to smell everything later," she chuckled. A little farther down the road, they reached a wooden bridge that crossed over a bubbling stream. The water below sparkled with the sunlight, and made soft, trickling sounds as it danced around the rocks. Kobe stepped carefully across the bridge, peeking between the slats. The moving water amazed him. It shimmered, swirled, and carried leaves along its path like little sailboats. When they reached the other side, the road narrowed into a wooded trail. The trees grew closer together, and the light filtered through the branches in shifting patterns. Kobe felt like he had stepped into a storybook forest. Then, a new sound. Barking. It was friendly, playful barking, coming from a small clearing just ahead. Mrs. Thompson smiled. "I think it's time you made a new friend." In the clearing, a young beagle named Benny was chasing a stick. His owner, a girl about Ellie's age, stood nearby waving. Benny saw Kobe and ran over, tail wagging in fast little circles. Kobe stiffened for a second. This was his first time meeting a dog who wasn't family. But Benny stopped in front of him, sniffed once, then barked twice in a cheerful, "Come play with me" kind of way. Kobe tilted his head, then gave a bark back. And just like that, they were chasing each other through the grass, leashes bouncing, paws pounding the ground. They darted around trees, circled the clearing, and playfully wrestled until they were both panting and flopped onto the grass. For the first time, Kobe felt something new blooming in his chest. Friendship. It was different from family love. It was exciting and wild and fun. Benny wasn't like his siblings. He had different fur, a different bark, and he smelled like adventures from a different part of town. But Kobe liked him a lot. Eventually, it was time to go. Mrs. Thompson called him gently, and Kobe looked back at Benny one last time. They touched noses quickly, a quiet goodbye. As they walked back toward the farm, Kobe's steps were slower but thoughtful. His mind was full of new things: bridges, streams, squirrels, and a new friend who made the world feel even bigger. Back at the farmhouse, Daisy was waiting on the porch. She wagged her tail as Kobe approached, and he bounded up to her, licking her face and spinning in a circle. He barked and barked, trying to tell her everything about the bridge, the trees, the stick chasing, the new smells. And Benny, Daisy nuzzled him gently. She understood. That night, Kobe curled up in his blanket by the fireplace, the leash still gently jingling nearby. As the fire cracked softly and the wind whispered outside, he thought about all the places he hadn't seen yet. He was just a small puppy in a big world. But now, that world didn't feel quite so far away. It felt open. It felt possible. And in his dreams, Kobe wasn't just running anymore. He was leading. Across streams, through trees, and into adventures that hadn't yet begun. Several weeks had passed since Kobe's first walk beyond Maplewood Farm. The world had opened up like a giant book, every page filled with new sights, smells, sounds, and feelings. Kobe wasn't a wobbly little puppy anymore. He had grown bigger, stronger, and braver. His paws no longer slipped on the wood floors, and he could sprint from the porch to the barn in the blink of an eye. But something had changed. Something Kobe didn't quite understand. That morning, Daisy sat with him in the sunshine, her eyes calm and gentle. She licked his head and gave a little nudge toward the edge of the porch, where Ellie and Jack were playing near a row of wooden crates. Inside the crates were little blankets, and inside those blankets, Kobe's siblings. One by one, they were being picked up, held, kissed on the nose, and placed gently into cars by smiling families who had come to adopt them. Kobe watched, confused at first, but as his sister with the heart-shaped spot was carried away, something clicked inside him. He wasn't just watching his siblings leave. He was staying behind. Mrs. Thompson came and knelt beside him. She gently scratched his ears and looked him in the eyes. "You're part of the family now, Kobe," she said. "This is your forever home." Kobe blinked up at her. Forever. His heart swelled. He didn't know what that meant in words, but he felt it. Home wasn't just the box or the barn. It was Ellie's laughter, Jack's games, Daisy's calm, and the warm glow of the fireplace on rainy days. It was the jingling of his collar and the sound of his name said with love. He was home. For good. Life on the farm found a new rhythm. Kobe started helping Mr. Thompson herd the chickens, even if he sometimes got a little too excited and scattered them all instead. He trotted beside Ellie when she fed the goats and sat quietly next to Jack during homework time. When the school bus pulled up, Kobe waited by the mailbox, tail wagging, until the kids came running down the driveway. On sunny afternoons, Kobe and Daisy lay together on the grass, watching clouds roll by. Sometimes Benny came to visit, and the two friends would race each other until they collapsed in giggling, barking piles. Kobe was fast now. He had learned the turns and slopes of the land. The wind loved running with him. And then came one of the biggest days of all. The Thompsons were setting up for the town's fall fair. Bright tents popped up in the fields. There were rows of pumpkins, and the smell of apple cider filled the air. Ellie tied a red bandana around Kobe's neck and gave him a proud pat. "You're going to be in the dog show today." Dog show. Kobe wasn't sure what that was, but he could tell by the excited buzz around him that it was something special. At the fairgrounds, dozens of other dogs were waiting with their humans. Big ones, small ones, puffy ones, sleek ones. Kobe looked around nervously. What if he tripped? What if he forgot what to do? But then he spotted Benny across the field wearing a blue scarf. Benny barked once, tail wagging as if to say, "You've got this." Ellie guided Kobe to the little course, a tunnel, a few cones, a jump. Kobe's heart raced. "Ready?" Ellie whispered. He nodded, or at least he tried. Then, go. Kobe darted forward, paws thudding the grass. He ran through the tunnel without hesitation, weaved through the cones, and leapt over the bar with ears flying. The crowd clapped and cheered. Ellie was laughing. Jack whooped from the sidelines. Daisy barked proudly from where she sat beside Mr. Thompson. Kobe had done it. He didn't win first place. That went to a fluffy poodle with perfect twirls. But he got something even better. A shiny gold ribbon that said, "Best Spirit." That night, as the fair lights twinkled in the distance and the moon rose high above the barn, Kobe lay beside Ellie on the porch. His ribbon fluttered gently in the breeze. His world had started in a cardboard box. Now, it stretched from the creek to the hills, from his paws to the stars. And he knew this was just the beginning.